When you live alone long enough, the walls start to remember. They hold the laughter, the arguments, the sound of footsteps, and the music that once filled the rooms. And when all of that is gone, the silence doesn't comfort you. It presses against you like a weight you can't lift. It's been 6 months since Frank passed away, 42 years of marriage, and then one ordinary morning, he was gone before the toast even popped. I still remember how his coffee was steaming on the table, while I dialed for help with shaking hands. They said it was quick. They said it was painless. Maybe for him. It hasn't been for me. The days since have blended together. I talk to him sometimes. I tell him when the mail comes, when the weather changes, when our daughter calls. The house still smells faintly of his aftershave, cedar, and soap. I keep his jacket hanging by the door, because taking it down would feel like erasing him. This morning I woke before dawn. The air felt heavier than usual, a chill sneaking through the cracks of the windows. I made coffee, wrapped my robe tighter, and stared at the closed door across the hallway. Frank's study. I hadn't stepped in there since the funeral. Something inside me whispered, "Go on, Grace. It's time." The knob was cold under my fingers. When I pushed it open, dust rose through the sunlight. His chair still faced the window. Papers were stacked in uneven piles on the desk, the way he always left them. The smell of old paper and wood polish hit me so hard I had to steady myself against the door frame. I began sorting through the drawers, old bills, fishing magazines, photographs from the 70s. Each item felt like a heartbeat from another life. Then, at the very back of the bottom drawer, I saw it. A small wooden music box I'd never seen before. It was beautifully carved. Tiny roses etched into the lid. A brass key on the side waited to be turned. I hesitated, then wound it once. A soft melody began to play. Moon River, our song. The one that played the night he proposed. Under the string lights by the lake. The one we danced to at our wedding, laughing because we both had 2 left feet. The one that echoed quietly at his funeral. My throat tightened as the notes floated through the room. When the tune slowed, I noticed something inside the box. Beneath the velvet lining, a corner of yellowed paper was tucked away. I lifted it carefully. It was an envelope, sealed, with 2 words written across the front in Frank's handwriting. "Forgive me." I stared at those words until my eyes blurred. Forgive me. Frank never apologized easily. He was gentle but stubborn. He liked to think everything could be fixed with a hug or a joke. Seeing those words in his handwriting made my stomach twist. I turned the envelope over. No date, no name, just that message. I wanted to open it right there, but I couldn't. My hands were shaking. What if whatever was inside changed everything I believed about him, about us? I set the letter down and closed the music box. The melody stopped, leaving a ringing silence that filled the whole room. The rest of the day drifted by. I tried to keep busy, laundry, dishes, calling the kids, but the envelope followed me in my mind like a ghost. Each time I looked at the clock, I imagined Frank's voice, calm, steady, patient. Forgive me. The words wouldn't stop echoing. That night, rain started tapping softly on the windows. I poured a glass of wine and sat by the window with the letter in my lap. Streetlights shimmered on the wet pavement outside. I whispered into the quiet, "What did you do, Frank?" Only the clock answered, ticking too loudly. I thought about those last few months before he died. The way he'd sit in this very room, long after midnight, staring at old photographs, scribbling notes he'd hide as soon as I walked in. When I asked what he was doing, he'd just smile and say, "Just thinking, Grace, about life." I never pressed. Maybe I should have. The rain grew heavier. I held the envelope to my chest and closed my eyes. I could almost hear his voice, could almost feel his hand on mine. He'd always been my safe place, my beginning and my end, but now I wasn't sure what was real anymore. Near midnight, I stood, carried the envelope to the kitchen table, and sat beneath the humming light. My reflection stared back from the window, older, smaller, lonelier. I took a deep breath, slid my finger under the flap, and stopped. A soft sound came from behind me. A click. I turned. The music box on the counter had shifted slightly, its bottom panel tilted open. I walked over, heart pounding, and lifted the velvet lining once more. There was another piece of paper underneath, smaller, folded tight. I opened it carefully. It wasn't Frank's handwriting this time. It was written in a graceful, flowing hand. Just one sentence. "For when you finally tell her the truth," and underneath, a woman's name I didn't recognize. The world tilted. I whispered the name again, tasting the unfamiliar syllables. My pulse thudded in my ears. I sat down hard on the chair, both papers trembling in my hands. Who was she? Why was her note hidden inside Frank's music box? The rain kept falling, soft and steady, as if it already knew the answer. I looked back at the first envelope. The words "forgive me" stared up at me, darker now, heavier. My heart ached so badly I could barely breathe. Whatever secret Frank carried, he tried to bury it here, in this house, with me still living among the ghosts. I pressed the envelope to my lips, whispering through my tears, "You should have trusted me. Frank, you should have told me while you were still here." Thunder rolled far away. I sat there until the candle burned low, listening to the rain, to the old clock, to the sound of my own heartbeat. I knew I couldn't hide from the truth much longer. Tomorrow morning I would open that letter, no matter what it said, because after a lifetime of love, I deserved to know who my husband really was. And somewhere deep down, I could already feel the world beginning to shift. Morning light found me sitting at the same kitchen table, the envelope still unopened in front of me. The candle had melted down to nothing during the night. My coffee sat cold beside my hand. I hadn't slept, not even for a moment. I just sat there, staring at those two words written in his familiar, slanted handwriting. Forgive me. I used to think forgiveness came easily with age, that when you'd lived long enough, you learned how to let things go. But sitting there in that quiet kitchen, I realized forgiveness is the hardest thing in the world when you don't know what you're forgiving. I ran my fingers over the edge of the envelope, tracing every curve of his pen. My heart was pounding. It felt wrong to open it, but worse not to. So I finally took a deep breath, slid my thumb under the flap, and pulled out a single folded page. The paper was thin and fragile, like it had been waiting for this moment for years. I unfolded it slowly. "Grace," it began, "if you're reading this, then I'm gone." I froze. His voice filled my mind as I read. Calm, steady. That same warmth that used to wrap around me when he'd say my name. "There are things I've carried my whole life that I couldn't tell you, not because I didn't love you, but because I loved you too much to risk losing what we had." I swallowed hard, my eyes already blurring. I wasn't alone before I met you, Grace. There was someone else. Her name was Lillian. That name, the same one written on the second note in the box. Lillian. My stomach twisted. She was my first love. We met when I was 20. We were young and reckless, and when she got pregnant, I promised I'd marry her. But life had other plans. I went away for work. When I came back, she was gone. Her family had moved her out of town. I searched for her for years, but I never found her again, until a letter came to me one winter. Long before you and I met, I stopped reading, my breath catching. The room seemed to shrink around me. I glanced toward the window. Sunlight was spilling across the counter, but everything inside me felt dark and cold. I forced myself to keep going. She told me she'd had a daughter, my daughter, but she didn't want me in her life. Said it was too late. I never stopped thinking about them, Grace. I carried that guilt through our whole marriage. Every time I looked at our children, I thought of the one I never knew. A tear slipped down my cheek, landing on the paper. I wiped it quickly, afraid of smudging his words. I never told you because I was ashamed. I didn't want you to see me differently. You were my salvation after years of regret. You were my peace. I know this secret will hurt you, but I hope you'll understand that loving you didn't erase my past. It only showed me how deeply I could love. The letter ended simply. I'm sorry, Grace. If you ever find her, please tell her. I never stopped loving her either. Frank. My vision blurred completely. I pressed the letter to my chest and sobbed. The kind of sob that comes from a place so deep it steals your breath away. I don't know how long I sat there crying. The world outside kept moving. The mail truck passed. A neighbor's dog barked. But I was stuck in another lifetime. A lifetime that didn't belong to me. Lillian, a child, a daughter. All those years we built a life together. He carried that secret in silence. The guilt, the longing, the memory of someone else. And he smiled through it all. He kissed me goodnight, told me I was his everything, while a ghost sat between us at the dinner table. For the first time, I didn't know who my husband really was. That evening, I sat on the porch with the letter in my lap. The sun was setting, painting the sky with pink and gold, but I barely saw it. I thought about the way Frank used to hum Moon River under his breath while working in the garden. I thought about the times I caught him staring at nothing, lost in thought, how I always assumed he was tired or just getting older. Maybe he was thinking about her. I whispered the name, Lillian, and it felt strange on my tongue, like saying it brought her ghost into the house. I couldn't stand it. I went back inside, took out the note I'd found in the music box, and looked at the name again. Lillian Harper. The handwriting was neat and graceful, the kind of writing that came from someone who took their time with words. For when you finally tell her the truth, had she known about me? Had she written this for him to hide? My mind spun in circles. I grabbed my old laptop and typed the name into a search bar. I didn't expect to find anything. It was such an ordinary name, but there it was, an obituary. Lillian Harper, age 73, of Millfield, Ohio, survived by one daughter, Rebecca Harper. Rebecca, that name hit me like a thunderclap. My hands trembled on the keyboard. If this was her, then Frank's daughter, his other daughter, was still alive. I sat there staring at the screen, trying to breathe. My heart was racing, but underneath the shock was something else, something I couldn't name. It wasn't just anger or sorrow. It was curiosity, maybe even hope. I'd spent months trying to live in the silence Frank left behind. But now there was something to reach for. Someone. The next morning, I printed the obituary and folded it neatly. I tucked Frank's letter beside it and placed both into my purse. For the first time in half a year, I brushed my hair, put on a coat, and stepped outside. The autumn air bit at my skin, but it felt good, real. I walked down the street to the little library on Main, the one Frank and I used to visit on Sundays. The librarian recognized me and gave me a kind smile. "Haven't seen you in a while, Grace," she said softly. I smiled back, even though my heart was breaking. "Just looking for someone," I told her. She helped me find a local records database. I searched for Rebecca Harper, Millfield, Ohio. There were a few results. Too many. But one stood out. Rebecca Harper, art teacher at Millfield Elementary School. I stared at the screen for a long time. My reflection wavered in the glass. Eyes red, face tired but determined. What would I even say to her if I found her? "Hello, I'm Grace. I was married to your father, the one you never met." It sounded impossible, but then I thought of Frank's words. "If you ever find her, tell her I never stopped loving her." I closed my eyes and whispered, "All right, Frank, I'll find her, for both of us." When I got home, I sat at the kitchen table and spread out the letters again. The music box sat beside them, its brass key glinting in the light. I turned it once, letting Moon River drift softly through the air. For the first time, I didn't cry when I heard it. The song didn't belong only to Frank and me anymore. It belonged to all of us, to the story I hadn't known existed. I packed the letter into a small envelope, tucked it into my purse, and looked around the house. Every wall, every photo, every memory felt different now, like I'd been living inside a dream someone else had written. But I wasn't afraid, not anymore, because maybe this was the beginning of something new, a chance to uncover the truth and finally let the past rest. As I locked the door behind me, I glanced up at the sky. Clouds were gathering in the distance, thick and gray, the kind of sky that promises a storm. And somehow I knew that when I found Rebecca, the real storm would begin. It had been years since I'd driven outside town, but that morning, the road felt like it was calling me. The map on my phone said Millfield was just over 2 hours away, a small town tucked between quiet fields and gray November skies. I packed a thermos of coffee, Frank's letter, and the obituary I'd printed, then stood by the door for a long while before locking it. I whispered into the empty house, "Wish me luck, Frank." The drive was quiet. The highway stretched endlessly ahead, the trees bare and thin, their branches like reaching hands. The radio played softly, a mix of country songs and static. Every now and then, I'd catch myself talking out loud, asking questions no one could answer. "Did you ever meet her, Frank? Did she look like you? Would she even want to see me?" I imagined what Rebecca might be like, if she had Frank's gentle smile, his quiet humor, his brown eyes that always softened when he looked at our children. Or maybe she hated him for never being there. Maybe she didn't even know he existed. When I finally reached Millfield, it was smaller than I expected. A few brick buildings, a post office, a diner with a flickering neon sign that said, "Open." I parked in front of the library, a small white building with ivy climbing up the walls. My heart was pounding so hard it almost hurt. Inside, the librarian was a young woman with bright eyes and a warm smile. "Good morning. Can I help you find something?" I hesitated. "Actually, I'm looking for someone." Rebecca Harper. She's an art teacher here, I think. She nodded. Oh, Rebecca. She teaches over at the elementary school. Sweet woman. She comes in here all the time for art books. You can't miss her. Always got paint on her hands. I smiled weakly. Sounds like her. The librarian tilted her head. Are you family? The word caught in my throat. Something like that, I said softly. The school wasn't far, just a short drive down a winding road lined with oak trees. The sound of children playing echoed as I parked near the fence. I sat there for a long time, gripping the steering wheel. My reflection in the rearview mirror looked pale, older than I remembered. I felt like I was standing on the edge of a cliff, unsure whether to step forward or turn back. Then I saw her, a woman standing outside by the playground, laughing with a group of kids. She had shoulder-length brown hair streaked with gray, a paint-stained apron, and eyes that caught the light in a way that made my breath stop. Even from a distance, I could see it, the resemblance. The same soft expression Frank had when he was lost in thought. Rebecca. I watched her for a while, frozen in my car. Every instinct in me screamed to leave, to let the past rest. But then I thought of Frank's letter, of his plea for forgiveness, and I knew I had to do this. For him, for her, and for myself. When the last of the kids went inside, I stepped out of the car and walked toward her. My shoes crunched softly on the gravel. She turned as I approached, and for a moment, confusion crossed her face. Hi, I said, my voice trembling. Are you Rebecca Harper? She nodded slowly. Yes, can I help you? I smiled faintly. My name's Grace. I hesitated, my throat tight. I think we might have something in common. Her brow furrowed. I'm sorry, do I know you? No, I whispered. But I knew your father. She blinked. My father? The word sounded uncertain, almost foreign on her tongue. My father died before I was born. My mother told me he left. I felt a tear slip down my cheek. He didn't leave, Rebecca. He never stopped looking for you. She stared at me, stunned. What are you talking about? I reached into my purse and handed her the envelope. The same one Frank had written, now folded soft at the edges. This is from him, I said. Frank Wilson. He was my husband. She took the letter slowly, her eyes flicking from me to the paper and back again. Your husband? She whispered. I don't understand. I didn't either, I said gently. Not until a few days ago. He left that letter for me. Said he once loved someone named Lillian. That they had a child. You. Her lips parted, but no words came out. She looked down at the envelope as though it were burning her fingers. He married someone else. Yes, I said softly. He married me. We built a life, had 2 children. But he never forgot you. The silence between us stretched painfully long. Rebecca's eyes filled with tears, but she didn't let them fall. My mother told me he never wanted us. She said he left when she told him about me. I shook my head, my own tears slipping freely now. He tried to find you, Rebecca. I swear he did. He carried that guilt all his life. She looked at me then, really looked. Her expression shifted, pain and confusion mixing with something deeper. Why are you telling me this? Because you deserve to know, I said. Because he wanted you to. And because I think he wanted us both to heal. She turned away, staring toward the playground, where the children's laughter echoed faintly through the window. My mother used to cry when she thought I couldn't hear, she said quietly. She told me love was a cruel thing, that it always leaves. I took a step closer. Sometimes it does, but sometimes it just gets lost along the way. She turned back to me, tears shimmering in her eyes. Do you have proof? Anything else? I opened my purse again and handed her the music box. She turned the brass key, and when Moon River began to play, she gasped. Her hand flew to her mouth. That song, she whispered. My mother used to hum it to me when I was little. Said it reminded her of him. My breath caught. I hadn't expected that. The melody filled the small space between us, haunting and beautiful, binding our grief like a thread. We both stood there, two strangers connected by a man neither of us fully understood. When the song ended, she looked down at the music box, then back at me. I don't know what to say. Neither do I admitted. But maybe we don't need words. Maybe we just start from here. Rebecca nodded slowly, her expression softening. Would you like to come by my place later? I have some of my mother's things. Maybe there's something you should see. My throat tightened. I'd like that very much. That evening, I followed her to a small house on the edge of town. It was cozy, with old photographs lining the hallway, and the faint smell of turpentine and paint in the air. She led me to a wooden chest in the living room. Inside were stacks of letters, some tied with ribbon, others loose and yellowed with time. These were my mother's, she said. I never read most of them. I couldn't. But maybe you should. I picked one up carefully. The paper crackled as I unfolded it. The handwriting was the same elegant script from the note I'd found in Frank's music box. It was dated 1979. Frank, it began. I don't know if you'll ever see this, but I can't let Rebecca grow up thinking her father didn't love her. I told you to stay away because I thought it would be easier. It wasn't. Please forgive me. My hands trembled. She tried to protect her, I whispered. She thought she was doing the right thing. Rebecca sank into the chair across from me, her face pale. She never told me any of this. I reached across the table, my hand covering hers. Maybe she was trying to protect herself too. Love makes us do strange things. For a long moment, we sat there in silence, surrounded by the ghosts of two people who had loved and lost each other in a world that never gave them a second chance. But sitting there with Rebecca, I realized that maybe we were their second chance. Maybe this was how love found its way home. As I left her house later that night, the air was cool and still. I looked up at the stars and whispered, "We found her, Frank." But even as I said it, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was still missing. One more truth hidden in the shadows, waiting to be uncovered. And deep down, I knew Rebecca had something she hadn't told me yet. I couldn't sleep that night. Even after I'd come home from Rebecca's, the echoes of her voice and the weight of all those letters wouldn't leave me. The air inside my house felt heavy again, like the silence was pressing down on my chest. I made tea, sat by the window, and read Frank's letter once more under the dim kitchen light. The words didn't hurt as sharply as before. They still cut, yes, but they also felt softer now, like old wounds finally beginning to scar over. I thought about Rebecca, how she'd looked at me when the music played, how her hands trembled when she read her mother's words. There was pain there, yes, but there was something else too, a flicker of understanding, something fragile trying to grow between us. By morning, I knew I couldn't leave things unfinished. There were still questions, still pieces missing, and maybe, if I was brave enough, I could help both of us find the rest of the truth. The next afternoon, I drove back to Millfield. Rebecca opened the door before I even knocked, like she'd been waiting for me. Her face looked tired, her eyes swollen from crying, but when she saw me, she managed a small, genuine smile. "Come in, Grace," she said softly. I made coffee. Her living room looked warmer this time. A painting sat half-finished on an easel near the window. Sunflowers under a cloudy sky. I could tell she painted the way Frank used to fix things, with quiet care and a touch of perfectionism that said, "This matters." She poured us each a cup and sat down across from me. "I couldn't stop thinking about last night," she said. "About everything you told me." "Neither could I admitted. "It's strange, isn't it? How two people can live whole lives not knowing they share the same story." She nodded slowly. "There's something I didn't tell you yesterday," she said, her fingers tracing the rim of her cup. "I found a letter after my mother died. It was addressed to me, but I never opened it. I thought it was just another apology. But after meeting you, I think maybe it's something more." My chest tightened. "Do you still have it?" She nodded and left the room for a moment. When she came back, she was holding a small white envelope, yellowed with time. She sat down and stared at it, her thumb brushing over her name, written in her mother's elegant handwriting. "I couldn't do it alone," she said quietly. Would you read it with me?" I reached across the table and took her hand. "Of course." She opened the letter carefully, as if afraid it would crumble in her hands. The paper unfolded slowly, revealing neat, deliberate lines of faded blue ink. "My dearest Rebecca," it began, "if you're reading this, then I'm gone, and you've grown into the woman I always hoped you'd be. There's something I need to tell you, something I should have told you years ago." Rebecca's breath caught. I squeezed her hand gently, urging her to go on. "Your father didn't leave us. I sent him away. I was scared, ashamed, and angry at the world. I thought I was protecting you, but I was only protecting myself. He wrote to me many times. I kept the letters, though I never answered. He loved you, Rebecca. Please believe that." Rebecca's lips trembled as she read. A tear slipped down her cheek, landing on the paper. She kept going, her voice breaking. "If you ever meet him, or someone from his life, forgive me. I let pride stand where love should have. Don't let my mistakes become yours. Be kind to the truth, even when it hurts." When she finished, she folded the letter and pressed it to her heart. Neither of us spoke for a long time. The only sound was the faint ticking of a wall clock and the wind brushing against the window pane. Finally she whispered, "She lied to protect me, but all it did was build a wall I didn't know existed." I nodded. Sometimes love tries too hard to protect. It forgets that truth can heal too. She looked up at me then, her eyes shining through tears. "He really loved me, didn't he?" I smiled softly. "More than you'll ever know." Rebecca stood, walked to a shelf, and picked up a small framed photo. It was of her mother, young and radiant, standing beside a man I didn't recognize. But his smile, the shape of his eyes, it mirrored Frank's so closely that my knees nearly gave out. "That was taken the year before I was born," she said. She never told me his name, but now I see it. I see him. I stepped closer, my fingers trembling as I touched the edge of the frame. "He would have been proud of you, Rebecca. You carry his kindness." She smiled faintly. "And maybe my mother's stubbornness." We both laughed softly through tears. Then she looked at me, serious again. Grace, I don't know what to do with all this. It's like I've lived my whole life missing half the story. Then maybe now's the time to write the rest, I said. Together. That night we cooked dinner. Nothing fancy, just soup and bread. But it felt like something sacred. We talked for hours. About Frank, about Lillian, about our children, about art and music, and how strange it was that life can break you and still find a way to mend you again. And for the first time since Frank's death, I didn't feel alone. When I finally got ready to leave, Rebecca walked me to the door. The air outside was cool, the sky heavy with stars. She hugged me tightly, an embrace that felt both brand new and achingly familiar. "Thank you, Grace," she whispered, "for finding me." I held her hand, tears filling my eyes. "No," I said softly. "Thank you for letting me." Driving home, the world felt quieter, lighter somehow. The grief was still there, yes, but it had changed shape. It wasn't an open wound anymore. It was something gentler, something that hummed softly beneath my ribs, like a memory that no longer hurt to touch. When I got home, I placed the music box on the kitchen table. I turned the brass key one last time. Moon River played, slow and beautiful, echoing through the stillness. I sat down, resting my hand over the lid. "You did good, Frank," I whispered. "She knows now. She forgives you. And maybe I do too." The melody drifted through the house, weaving between the walls that had once felt so empty. I closed my eyes and imagined him there, standing in the doorway, smiling that soft smile that always made me feel like the world was safe again. For the first time in a long time, I smiled back. When the last note faded, I opened the window and let the cold night air in. The stars shimmered above, quiet witnesses to all the love, the loss, and the forgiveness that had finally found its way home. Maybe love doesn't end when someone's gone. Maybe it just waits, patiently, quietly, until we're ready to find it again.